So something we talked about before, is that what you're leading into, is something like an ADU or a detached garage. Hello and welcome everybody to the Housing Tips. It's the show where we talk about housing information, housing news, and everything in between. If any of that information sounds of interest to you, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We would really appreciate it. Jesse, what about you?
I would appreciate it too, man. Today, I'm feeling like a turnkey property today. Just add caffeine and I'm ready to go.
That was a fantastic intro. But speaking of turnkey properties and speaking of diamonds in the rough, that's actually the topic of today's episode. Jesse, what's today's topic of today's episode?
Yeah, today's topic: how to spot a hidden gem in California.
No, definitely, especially with the high prices of California properties. Finding a hidden gem and working on it can definitely mean the difference between something small and something large. But yeah, we'd love to hear your first tip, and then I'll let you know my tips after.
Yeah, my first tip, I jotted down high potential for like multi-generational living, like houses with separate entrances, dual master bedrooms, or like in-law suites, just to kind of cater to those multi-generations. That's becoming more common. And due to cost and due to rising costs of California, yeah, like we don't undermine and like, yeah, we realize the cost in our state. And so properties that can accommodate, generations where they're able to support each other. There's a lot of individuals that like that type of lifestyle, have the support, are able to engage activities, family oriented. So being able to see of finding a property that offer those amenities that can suit that type of lifestyle.
Interesting. So something we talked about before, is that what you're leading into, is something like an ADU or a detached garage, turning that into a granny flat, turning that into a casacita.
Yeah, like you see like the properties if it's like a separate entrance or like we've mentioned before in a podcast, of a detached garage and being able to have a relative, in the back unit, you're having your space still divided, still private, still separate. And some people might be like, "Oh, that's going to be hard to do." But communicate with your family members as well, just kind of what are rules, guidelines, boundaries, and you'd be surprised how you can just really make it flow, make it work, and support each other, and everyone is contributing and gaining value on the property.
Interesting. No, that's a fantastic tip right there. Now I have a question for you then. Would it be better to have a large property and then build something on top of it, or look for something that already has a garage detached or have like a barn detached and turn that into a living area?
Yeah, I feel like it'll kind of depend on price point or the deal or the area and city. So looking to see of how is this going to affect our monthly payment. Is that going to be something that's going to be more challenging? Is it beneficial to already have something that's there, or you get a good deal and then with time you're able to build and get advice on that, all depending on how the numbers work. Because if you're getting top dollar and then you're going to do new build, off the top of my head I'm going to say that probably doesn't sound like a good deal.
Yes, definitely. And that's actually one of my tips that I actually want to move into, is the tip of buying as large of a lot as you possibly can. I know everybody wants to have a big house. They want to have all the parties, especially with the holidays right around the corner for us. But having a smaller house but having a larger property, that can lead to, further upgrades, things you could do to the house as well. It's actually another episode we're going to talk about in a future episode, is different upgrades that you can actually do to your property to increase the value. But one of the big tips that I would say is buying as large of a property land as possible, since it leaves you a lot more flexibility than having a really large house, but then there's not much you can do with it after.
Yeah, it's a great idea of even looking at a smaller property with a big lot. If
Yes.
if if it's a two bed or one bed where a lot of people are not gonna look at those properties. They want a three bed, a four bed, bigger family. But what if you lock in a great deal on a one bed, a two bed, huge lot, and you have opportunity to just kind of add on as you go. If you have that flexibility right now and with time, to make those adjustments. So I think that's a good idea. A big lot size. I recall a property I showed you in West Covina, huge lot size, like half an acre.
Yes, but it's sold
Um,
for a very high premium price. So at that
yes,
point, is it even worth it then when you're paying such a high premium on it?
and I think for that one is also looking at the zoning as well. There was a like medical center next door. So I wonder if that
Oh,
individual, if it was zoned like limited commercial,
mhm.
then how many units can they add on or commercial that they can build on that land? So maybe it was a deal based on that information that they had.
Interesting. No, definitely. Because yeah, that is something interesting to think about as well. Is when you're not close to hospitals or grocery stores, it doesn't matter how big your lot is. It's still not going to raise the value because at the end of the day, it's like you still have to travel miles and miles to go to Target or go to any sort of grocery store or like medical center, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at the openness of like maybe a bigger lot, maybe I don't have the size of the property, but with time I can make those adjustments.
Definitely. And then moving on to my last tip was actually we talked about it before, we talked it in plenty of other episodes, especially in the California area. Detached garages are just so sought after nowadays. Back in the day, everyone thought, having an attached garage was better, especially when it's cold outside. You just go into the garage, get your car warmed up, you can leave. But man, seeing those properties, those older 1930s, 40s, 50 houses with a detached garage and being able to turn those into ADUs or game rooms or like you said, that's a huge hidden gem is that just seeing a detached garage, it leads to different possibilities of what you can do after.
It's crazy how it's like flipped around completely.
Yes.
I recall living in South LA. My parents had a property in South LA. It was a two-bed, one bath, and the back was the garage, and it actually had like an unfinished area on top. We never used it. It was kind of like even as a kid, it was my dad put like a little wood board on there. I was like afraid, like, is it haunted? Like, but towards the end started to kind of fix it up and then see like, hey, this could be like a entertainment area or it can be, but fast forward now and as an adult, hey, like that's probably someone living there now. The
Definitely.
bottom area, there's also probably someone living there. It's probably like 3 units already at this point.
Yeah. That's insane to even think about, especially in the past. People didn't want a detached garage. They thought of it as a lesser property, thought of it as an older
Yeah.
property, but very interesting. But to close up this video, Jesse, is there any other hidden small gems you would think about purchasing a house in California that could be diamond in the roughs and something that you can build upon?
Yeah, I always mention, and I'm gonna repeat myself over and over, but many older homes, I understand people will steer away. They have like separate rooms, but having that vision, knocking down a wall or two could really create like a huge difference. Open concept, making it modern. Hey, like my property, like that's what I did, and maybe we'll kind of share some photos, but it was a partition wall,
Mhm.
and there was a point where I just got tired of it and just
Yeah.
knocked down the partition wall, and then after that I was only planning on doing like a small rehab, and then we kind of did a little bit more. But now it's like the island and it's open, and I have that kind of area to kind of have people over and kind of host. Whereas before, someone would be in the kitchen, can't see them, because you're in that area and that partition wall. So looking to see about maybe it sounds like a big cost, but knocking down a wall or two could make a big, big difference.
Yes, or something interesting too, and then this is something we could talk about in a future episode. That leading into is that maybe just building a second story above your first story. I know that's probably vastly expensive. We'll run the numbers for every viewer that's listening, but that could be an option as well. But as always, though, Jesse, thank you for your time. And if any of that information sounds of interest for you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. But as always, have a great day.